One Piece has the best world building in modern manga. Yeah, I said it. This is a certifiable fact, and you cannot dispute anything I'm saying. Yeah, argue with the wall, you ass nigga. Nah, I'm just kidding. I love you, dear viewer. Some of you, not all of you. One Piece has been going on for longer than I've been alive, and somehow it's still going strong. The anime is popping off, the manga still has gas in the tank, and fans are hungry for more content and hilarious agenda posting. I've still got 5 arcs to go until I'm caught up, so I'm a bit sad, admittedly, but I can see why it's so loved. I'm currently writing this script while going through Punk Hazard, and I've been blown away by Otis Peaks. Side note, my editor's been waiting for like a year and a half for me to glaze One Piece, so my bad, bro. I wasn't familiar. I wasn't familiar. The character designs, fire. Artwork, beautiful. The chemistry within the main cast is immaculate. But most importantly, and everything that supersedes all of this, is the world building. Now, what is world building? World building is, quote, the act of imagining, designing, and implementing the world of a story. Designing maps, in-universe rules, fantastical or sci-fi elements, all of that is a part of the process. Life forms, cultures, environments, and socio-politics all contribute to the overall world, even if the story is only tangentially related to them. Now, why is One Piece so revered for its world building? Let's break down exactly what makes it so alluring and why it's legendary. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, hit the Discord in the description below. We are on our way to 20,000 subscribers, so please subscribe. I need every single one of you. And yeah, let's go ahead. Let's dive right in. Number 1, the world feels alive and changing. If I had to pinpoint one phrase that would encompass this section, it would be scope of scale. Every single arc that we go along with in One Piece, our heroes feel smaller and smaller in the grand scheme of things, and I heavily enjoy it. Before the time skip, I loved the fact that our crew was this ragtag group with zero infamy, just encountering all this craziness, except for Zoro early on. The world in One Piece feels like our cast of characters is constantly lacking necessary information that those native to these islands that they explore would deem important. For example, the Agua Laguna is on a yearly cycle and wreaking more and more destruction upon the people of Water 7, but our heroes don't find out about this until a bit later in their journey. So when the Agua Laguna arrives, and it's the biggest one yet, we have proper buildup and expectations as to how large this threat is. This is the lifeblood of One Piece, is it not? I mean, just look at how rich and alive the lore of Skypiea is. Not even just the religious aspect. Go check out my video covering Eps. But with the story of Nolan that we had laid upon us in the Jaya arc, we see it come full circle and come to understand that Nolan was in fact telling the truth and actually had formed a very close bond with the people on the island. So when Luffy rings the bell and we see how much this means to Wiper and all of these Shandians, it lands. Originally, I will confess, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Nolan story and I was confused as to why this was relevant, but then when I saw the vision, I was moved. As you all know, I was One Piece's biggest hater for years upon years. I was bringing slander like crazy to this fandom. But when I read the gospel, I've been a changed man, chat, admittedly. From being a non-stop slanderer to being brought to tears because of a little reindeer wanting to become a doctor. I mean, this nigga owed it to go for real. Oh my goodness. Anyway, the fact that the Straw Hats constantly feel like they are a step behind and have to play catch up is one of the bigger strengths of the series, obviously, but Luffy himself plays into this as well. Luffy is a simpleton. He wants to become king of the pirates and he loves food, but when you look at all these insane situations that he ends up in and Luffy just looks at it and says, I don't care, I'm gonna do what's right, it's a bit poignant. Luffy looking at the flag representing all these allied nations and telling Sniper King to burn it down was impeccable. Because in Drum Island, he tells Wapol that a man's flag represents his very ideals and dreams, as well as a direct symbol of identity and honor. So when Spandam tells Luffy that the world government flag represents 170 countries, and Luffy, without hesitation, dispatches of it and yells out, "Bring it on!" Without saying it, he says that to Robin. He says to his dear crewmate that she is worth it. Luffy will inevitably have to deal with the consequences of this, but in the moment, and even after, he doesn't care. Luffy being a simpleton works in the story of One Piece because there are certain circumstances in real life where, regardless of the previous context, the right thing needs to be done. For example, Luffy had no idea of Nami's trauma regarding her village and the Fishman pirates. Although she seemingly did betray the crew, he knew from her character that she was a crewmate and that she needed help. So when she tearfully looks him in his eyes and asks for help, he's been waiting for this moment and screams, "Of course I will!" This has so much history. There is so much history in the world of One Piece with every single person Straw Hats run into, and more often than not, it makes the world richer. Number 2, political and social structures. Oda has a very interesting method of tackling social issues and ethnic disparities in One Piece. You have examples of traditional racism and prejudice with the Fishman Island arc and how they were typically seen as subhuman and sold off as slaves. But then you have examples of patriarchal corruption, such as Wapol hoarding all the doctors Drum Island and causing incremental damage to the people. And then you have the Marines and the world leaders who were consistently hiding truth regarding the blank period in history. While on the flip side of that, you have Navy men who truly believe they're fighting on the right side of history and believe they can make real change, like Smoker and Garp. Aokiji as well to a limited extent. But then you also have groups such as the Revolutionary Army and the Yonko as well. You have the upper echelon of governmental figures that are the Celestial Dragons, who are representations of Nepo babies in the world of politics who have no place when it comes to policies and ruling over citizens of their respective kingdoms. Aristocrats are widely despised in the world of One Piece, and they are definitely shown to deserve it. The way lower class people are treated in certain areas of the world, most prevalently in the flashback with Sabo, Ace, and Luffy, in which Sabo tries to warn the people of Great Terminal that there is a plan to burn down their homes with them in it. Obviously, the aristocrats looked horrible in that instance. Lower class struggles in One Piece are highlighted consistently, and I genuinely do enjoy some of the commentaries that Oda has for it. For example, Crocodile having a monopoly on the rain that comes into the kingdom of Alabasta shines a light on how easy it is for governmental officials to seize and hold assets over citizens' heads and secure their positions by drip feeding them these essential assets with things that they need. Each faction in the world of One Piece has its own history, motivations, and internal conflicts, making them feel like living, breathing entities. Number 3, geography and set pieces. The Grand Line is split into so many different islands and climates, and it makes it so interesting as a viewer to wonder what new tribes and animals we will run into next. You have islands with a gothic classic horror element such as Thriller Bark, then you go to a very goofy and surreal planescape such as Long Ring Longland. One Piece set pieces always give each arc a unique and classic flavor. One of my favorite set pieces is the Mesoamerican inspired ruins of Shandora with the massive stone ziggurats and pyramids. Oda makes it very clear that the further we go into the Grand Line, no two islands feel the same. Sky Island, Winter Island, Zombie Islands, they all feel connected. The diversity in the set pieces truly sell the sense of adventure that the crew is going along. And while yes, sometimes the Straw Hats are trying their damnedest to prevent Luffy from jumping headfirst down a waterfall or the most dangerous island that the log post is pointing to, we as the audience know that we are in for a good time. Except Punk Hazard. I just finished Punk Hazard, and I don't think I've ever dragged reading One Piece like that since like Long Ring Longland. Oh my god, I don't want to do that review. I don't want to do it. Number 4, long-term payoffs. Some things have been seeded hundreds of chapters in advance. Jinbei, who we didn't officially get a look at until Impel Down, was first discussed in chapter 67 when Johnny and Yosaku are referring to just who let Arlong Park run freely in the East Blue. When I realized that the figure that was working on the Going Merry was not just a figure of Usopp's imagination, but rather a supernatural being that was a manifestation of the Merry's will to keep his crew going on as many adventures as possible due to all the love that they had shown it, I was absolutely floored, fam. As much as I love Laboon the whale, I never in 100 years thought that we would actually end up going back to this poor little whale in Thriller Bark and seeing just how heartbreaking the story revolving around the pirate crew he was. I did not expect it. I mean, you have the worst father in the history of anime and manga making his appearance in Logtown by saving Luffy, but then hundreds of chapters later at the end of Enies Lobby is when we officially get told just who Dragon is. Even post-time skip, Dragon's appearances are very sparse, but we learn a bit more about him incrementally with each subsequent appearance. It is all super engaging for the most part, and while admittedly we can be overloaded with information and have flashbacks that seemingly grind the plot to a halt, I'm looking at you, Fishman Island and Sabo. Blackbeard's introduction in Jaya was something neat and cool as a reader to book note, but nobody could have predicted just how large of a threat he would end up being in Impel Down and Marineford. Number 5, lore and history interwoven with present day plot. The lore of One Piece feels essentially bottomless, and that is a good thing. There's so much mystery in One Piece, and it feels like we are constantly being introduced to new questions to ponder on. The Will of D on Drum Island, which I'm still not 100% sure of, considering none of these people are related by blood except Ace and Roger, most likely from from what my current theory is that all figures who end up changing history have this middle initial, but I'm not entirely convinced yet. You have the Void Century or blank period that the government initiated, and how effortlessly that was integrated into Robin's backstory and that how affected her upbringing. You have the ancient weapons and poneglyphs. You have this mysterious figure Joy Boy who is referenced in Fishman Island. There are so many historical mysteries in One Piece that have yet to be discovered, and I love it. These lore pieces give these climaxes to these arcs much needed weight, and it carries much weaker arcs such as Fishman Island. Hody Jones is widely regarded as somewhat of a mid-villain in the larger One Piece space. I mean, he is referred to by most as Diet Arlong, but the history of the persecution and prejudice that the fishmen suffered at the hands of mankind make his character even at least somewhat memorable. Everything in One Piece feels connected in one way or another. Somebody from this island knows somebody from another island, or at least knows something about their ancestor or their goldfish that passed away when they were like 6 years old or something. One Piece lore does get kind of contrived at some points, huh? But then you add in the mystery of the devil fruits and just where they came from. It's all so fascinating. Now, for the next portion of this video, I wanted to bring in someone else that is a huge One Piece fan, but may have some more insight into things I may not have covered in necessary depth, or may not have had a chance to experience yet in my journey through One Piece. Please give a warm welcome to my second favorite European that I have featured on this channel, Alonz. Weeb, if you're watching this, you're still my favorite.
Am I hearing that right? Did bro actually just say second favorite? Do you know what? Actually, that's kind of valid, because I want to play devil's advocate a little bit in this section, because Daffy is glazing this shit like crazy right now. So as someone who's fully caught up with One Piece, I have a much better gauge of where we're at in the story currently and what future events of One Piece are going to happen, especially since we're now in that final saga. I'm not going to rehash any of Daffy's points, because I think he actually really hit the nail on the head with most of them, so I'm going to switch things up a little bit and get a bit more specific, a little bit more niche. Now, you see, for me, One Piece has done what only 2 or 3 other shonen series have ever done, and that is leave me with this feeling of lust. It's an overwhelming desire to see more of the aspects of One Piece that most appeal to me. These aspects will obviously differ between each reader, but the principle remains pretty much the same. Due to the massive scale of One Piece, it's nearly impossible to value every character, and every faction, and every connecting plot as much as the other ones, you know? It's a natural response for us to form favorites. For example, Law, Shanks, and Garp are my 3 favorite One Piece characters, so whenever they get active, I'm instantly 100% more locked in. And likewise, when we're following a subplot or character that I'm less interested in, kid, I lose focus a little bit, you know? And this isn't a criticism of the story, because it's just an inevitable result of human behavior that we form favorites. The beautiful and yet unbelievably frustrating and very worrying thing about One Piece, though, is that it edges you. Like, the example I'm gonna use for my point here is Mihawk and Shanks, but it does apply to a massive range of characters. See, Mihawk and Shanks are what I would call world builders. If you read Fire Force, you'll get what I mean by this. They're kind of like anchor characters for the series. They are both introduced within the first 50 chapters of the manga, and it almost immediately becomes clear that they are both going to be endgame characters. At least it's very clear for Mihawk. These are characters who are not just mere stepping stones for the Straw Hats. They are the end goal. They are the guardians of Luffy and Zoro's respective dreams, and by extent, the Straw Hats' dreams. Despite being a much more niche and specific element of the world building, I think it is the anticipation of these certified endgame characters that keep readers on their toes. It gives us reason to keep reading on, because we all fell for Oda's bait and were hooked on that Zoro versus Mihawk rivalry since the beginning of the series. Like, don't deny it. Everyone's invested in that. As for Shanks, I think it was the moment that he clashed with Whitebeard and pulled up in Marineford that made people feel a similar way about him. For the entire 1,000 plus chapter duration of the manga, Oda has been insanely conservative when it comes to even showing these world builder characters at all, let alone giving them active involvement in the affairs of the world. And yet, all of us, every single time, tune in to the next chapter with the hope that we're going to see an update of these world builder characters, which drive the story of One Piece quite literally from the shadows. I mean, we've been knowing that Shanks has been making insane moves behind the scenes since Marineford, and then even more so since Wano and Egghead. If you know, you know. Oda's edging technique with these One Piece world builder characters like Mihawk, Shanks, Duffy, Garp, Kobe, Law, and so on is so unbelievably effective that it has captivated millions of readers into becoming addicted with the progression of this story, despite almost never giving us what we want. And bear in mind, the reason why I think this is a great world building ability is because Oda has somehow created so many individual moving parts, but he's done a great job of making them all feel interconnected. It feels like a world. It feels like there is a system and different factions, and it all functions similarly to how real life functions, just a massive big spiderweb. But at the same time, it also feels like how Gege edged us with Jujutsu Kaisen, you know? We wanted those Heian era flashbacks. We wanted those character interactions. We wanted that Hikari vs. Arame fight. But unlike Gege, who never intended to show this, Oda very much does. He's just taken his sweet time, and it's incredibly effective because, like, what do you mean Shanks is in my top 3 characters despite him having less screen time than Sanji has dignity? Like, how does that make sense? However, I do still want to critique this writing style from Oda because as much as I believe the edging technique does drive active engagement and longing for more, there is a chance that when these characters finally get their moment, it will feel rushed and the payoff might not be as big as it could have been. It honestly works the same for the One Piece itself. The anticipation is what drives everyone to keep reading, but when it comes to the actual reveals, there is a huge risk that they're going to fall short. It's the definition of building false expectations. By using this edging strategy, Oda may have written himself into a corner where the payoffs don't really match the expectation, which is why I think he needed to find a bit more of a balance. We needed more of these world builder characters, these anchors that are always, you know, on the back of our minds. For example, Mihawk vs. Vista probably should have happened on screen at some point in the series by now. And there should be more interactions between these characters and other characters like them within the world. I also think we should be setting a clear baseline of how strong these characters actually are, what their motives really are, and what their behind-the-scenes actions have been. I'm not saying reveal all of these things completely, but I'm saying Oda should tease it and build it up a little bit more than he has been, so that we understand how high the stakes are when we finally get to the payoff. I'm very concerned that 1,100 plus chapters later, the payoff for a lot of these endgame plots are going to feel very rushed and we might not have time to digest everything. My point is that One Piece world building is driven by a select few who keep things connected and in motion behind the scenes. I think we should see a little bit more of that stuff and a little bit less of, oh, you know, toy soldiers falling over every other second in Dressrosa, for example. Also, comments. For the love of God, please cook Daffy for not reading cover stories. Like, how is bro making a One Piece world building video when he hasn't even read the cover stories? Do you know what? I've yapped for long enough. I think I've got my point across. I'll hand it back over to Daffy now. It's his video.
Now, while I will be avoiding Alon's input like the plague because I am not caught up on current One Piece, I don't want to be spoiled on what meals Oda has cooking up for me. I'm assuming I agree with what Alon says. Maybe. One Piece's world building is renowned in the anime and manga space, and I wholeheartedly believe that it is rightfully deserved. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think of One Piece's world building, and do you think there are any holes that stick out in particular? It's been your boy Daffy, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this video. Please make sure you leave a like and subscribe. Make sure you hit up the One Piece playlist that is in this video. Somewhere. It's over here somewhere. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Y'all make sure you take care of yourselves, and have a damn good one. Peace.